If you're looking for a used electric car, we all know that there are plenty of considerations that must be made in picking a car that's ultimately right for you. From the vehicle's overall reputation over the lifetime of the car, to its range per charge, susceptibility to premature battery aging, and availability of spare parts, picking a used electric car can be quite a challenge. And we've made several videos on this channel covering some of the tips and tricks that you should use, or things you should look out for when buying a used electric car. But what you might not know is that there are really two different types of electric cars that you might encounter when you're looking for a used electric vehicle. And today I'm going to tell you why you might want to steer clear of some of them, why some early electric vehicles that were built as a result of a collaboration or a partnership between different automakers might pose significant problems, and give you some of the things to be aware of when buying your used EV. As I'm sure those who've been following this channel for a while will know, there have traditionally been two different types of plug-in cars on the marketplace. And no, I'm not talking about the difference between a plug-in hybrid and a battery electric vehicle. I'm talking about the difference between production electric cars that were built in significantly large volumes and that were widely available for a significant number of years, and limited production models built with the solid intent of ensuring the automaker in question met whatever local and national regulations existed for zero tailpipe emission vehicle sales. That second group, nicknamed Complaince Cars by those of us in the industry at the time, can vary in number from a couple of hundred vehicles over the course of their production all the way up to several thousand or more. Regardless, though, of how many were made, they were all limited in their initial market availability. In the US, that usually meant selling in California and any of the other US states that had officially adopted the California zero-emission vehicle mandate, a mandate that fined automakers over a certain size if they didn't produce a proportional number of zero-emission vehicles to the rest of their fleet. Examples of Complaince cars? Well, that would be the 2012 through 2019 Fiat 500e, the second generation Toyota RAV4 EV, the Ford Focus EV, the lease-only Honda Fit EV, first generation Volkswagen e-Golf, and the Mercedes-Benz B-Class ED, as well as the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, in some markets at least, and the Chevrolet Spark EV. A more recent Complaince car? Well, that will be the Honda Clarity EV, which was discontinued earlier this year. And no matter how hard you argue to the contrary because they're not Teslas or because you want them to be, neither the Nissan Leaf nor the Chevrolet Bolt EV are Complaince cars. They were produced in higher volumes than the vehicles I've just noted and were eventually available nationwide. Neither is the BMW i3 or Chevrolet Volt. While the i3 sales volume has remained pretty low, it is available fairly widely, and the Volt was available nationwide in the US, even though its European and other market siblings were far closer to Complaince car status, but I'm digressing. I should mention here that there are also weird edge case models too, such as the Smart for 2 ED, a car that was sold in limited markets in North America, but also happened to be a variant of a car that was frankly pretty much exclusively sold in certain key states because of the limited number of US smart dealerships. So while it was a limited market vehicle, I don't feel it's necessarily a traditional Complaince car in the traditional sense, given the low volume of smart car sales in the US anyway. Because cars like the Nissan Leaf and Chevrolet Bolt EV were generally produced in higher numbers than the Complaince cars I've just mentioned, you tend to see them dominate in the used car marketplace in terms of the sheer number of cars available. But Complaince cars also tend to come in at a lower price point than those vehicles because of their limited market appeal and lower production volume, and that means people are tempted to opt for them rather than the larger volume, more widely available cars. I've already noted on this channel that Complaince cars can pose problems if you happen to buy them outside of markets where they were initially sold and serviced. By contrast, if you buy a Complaince car in a Complaince car market where there's still a robust after-sales service for those cars, the Chevrolet Spark, Fiat 500e and e-Golf are all good examples of this, you shouldn't have as many issues, if any, as the vehicles are designed and built by their respective automakers and generally remain well supported in large urban centres. But as Brad Berman on Electrek recently noted, not all Complaince cars are built in the same way and have the same benefits. And the ones we're talking about all happen to be built in the same way, specifically cars that were sold by one automaker but were either engineered or included parts from another company. I'm talking specifically about cars that were either rebadged as one brand but made by another. A good example of this is the Citroën C0 and Peugeot Ion, which were basically rebadged Mitsubishi iMoves in Europe. In addition, also the second generation Toyota RAV4 EV and Mercedes-Benz B-Class ED. These two latter cars were based on gasoline models, but re-engineered and produced in small volumes with the help of Tesla. In other words, while the cars themselves were made by their respective brands, the power electronics, the battery pack and the drivetrain was made by Tesla. Originally designed back when both Toyota and Mercedes-Benz had pretty significant shareholdings in Tesla, these vehicles allowed the respective automakers to sell their own electric cars without having to significantly invest engineering time in-house, all at a price point that was less than the cost of the fines of non-compliance with California regulations. As Berman notes in his article, a friend with a Mercedes-Benz B-Class ED, a car on the face of it that offers a lot more than many other electric cars of a similar age, noted a problem with his car's drivetrain that got progressively worse, namely a whine that, upon visiting the dealership, was the telltale sign of a well-known flaw of the drivetrain on these Tesla-engineered cars. With the car out of warranty, the owner was quoted an eye-watering $18,000 to have it fixed by the dealership. Because both the B-Class ED and Toyota RAV4 EV are Complaince cars built by their respective companies but electrified by Tesla, neither Mercedes-Benz nor Toyota have extensive parts in-house for those respective vehicles. And rather than swap the faulty part out, motor bearings in this case, the dealership's technicians, who aren't trained with that level of knowledge because so few examples exist, choose to follow the standard recommended practice, which is to replace the entire faulty drivetrain. And to be clear, it's not because they're incapable of bearing replacement, but rather that because it costs dealerships and automakers less time and money to train technicians to replace the entire unit with a new one than it does to train those technicians to strip the unit down and replace the actual failed part. If there were an order of magnitude more examples of each vehicle on the road, the training to strip down and replace the faulty part might be a lot more cost-effective for both dealerships and customers. But in this case, with so few examples on the road, not so much. That said, I should note that the bearing failure is a well-known problem with both the aforementioned models and the early Tesla Model S, which is why many experts suggest you should buy a used Tesla from 2014 or newer. And yes, in case you are interested, early on in Model S life, failed bearings were also replaced the same way, by replacing an entire new drivetrain, as it was quicker to do so when Tesla had a smaller, heavily in-demand workforce. And of course, in the case of these two Complaince cars, I'm sure the problem is compounded by the fact that neither Mercedes-Benz nor Toyota really wanted to support either vehicle from the get-go, and Tesla, frankly, isn't a fan of letting third-party repairs take place on any of its components. Luckily, though, there is a burgeoning third-party movement of specialist shops that are now starting to specialise in these very special vehicles. I know several of them, and their owners are very much keeping busy with customers from across the US. One of them, QC Charging California, also offers aftermarket DC CHAdeMO adapters for those two Tesla-engineered Complaince cars. Other specialists across the US offer similar repair and assistance. And in Europe, repair shops are opening for Fiat 500s. But this is a third-party specialist, so it's usual that the turnaround for your car is going to be less quick as it would be at your local dealership. Essentially, while you can get a repair, and if you happen to not live in the town where your nearest specialist is based, it will probably take a little longer for your car to get back on the road. With patience and with perseverance, these vehicles are still perfect used EVs to own with the above caveats. But if you're looking for a car that's better supported with a dealer network that will be far happier to work on them, well, you really should steer clear of these super low volume specialist compliance cars. As for those larger volume compliance cars, well, you might be lucky. In Oregon, for example, specifically Portland, the Chevy Spark EV is well supported, just like the Fiat 500e is in California, as well as Oregon. But next time you look at a compliance car in the classifieds, ask yourself how easy it'll be to repair if it fails outside of its warranty. A little research in that department can save you really big bucks in the future. That's it for today's video. If you'd like to help us make more videos like this, please do like, comment and subscribe, and you can support us using the links below. Thanks to the folks scrolling by on my right. They are our charged up patrons. Thanks to Jeffrey Songster, John Lyons and Regine Fellows. They are our $50 a month self-driving patrons. And special thanks to our $100 a month Starman patrons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback and Sean Udea. If you're looking for something else to watch from this channel, then Google thinks you might enjoy that one. So if you haven't watched it already, please do give it a look. And I'll be back soon with more great content for you all to enjoy. Until next time, wash your hands, stay safe, and work to become a better, kinder person. Strive for equality. And remember to treat others as you'd like to be treated yourself. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Keep evolving.